All right, am I late? I might be late. I don't know. I was texting with somebody that I'm going to be on an interview with later, people from around the country wondering how can people be happy to lose a stalwart offensive lineman like Laremy Tunsil? Don't you guys realize that you had pass protection issues last year? Yes, we do. And yet, there are multiple reasons to be happy that D'Amico Ryans did something that's kind of hard to do, which is part with a guy who's a really good pass protector, but in a lot of ways was the exact opposite of the types of players that D'Amico really, really wants. I was about to say claims he wants, but that's where part of the problem is. What's his favorite acronym? SWARM. Special Work Ethic and Relentless Mindset. It's a horrible acronym because it cuts out ethic from the acronym, but Special Work Ethic and Relentless Mindset. And D'Amico, when he talks about swarm, he is like a fundamentalist preacher in that regard. He believes it, he lives it, he 100% did not just stick it up in a wall because he read some motivational book and that's the slogan of the week. That's what guides all of his decisions and the way he coaches. And I know a lot of you have seen this. I know I've played this before, but this is CJ Stroud on the Pivot podcast last year in the offseason. As he was telling a story about Laremy Tunsil, LT, he refers to him as in the video. Here's CJ on Laremy Tunsil.
You know, LT, like, he a vet. Like, he not doing nothing extra at practice. Like, like.
Yeah, your young quarterback, your young impressionable quarterback points to Laremy Tunsil as the vet. And that offensive line was one of the softest offensive lines in football. The offense as a whole was one of the softest offenses in football. I'm not just talking about whether they're good or bad as an offense. They were mediocre as an offense. They were a lot worse in the second half of the season, but they were soft. They could not run the ball. And first down, second down, hey, it's awesome that Laremy Tunsil's a great pass protector, but when you have an offensive tackle who really doesn't give a damn about run blocking most of the time, but for a sliver of time in the regular season this year after 5 years, when you're in 2nd and 10, when you're in 3rd and 10 because you can't run the football, hey, it's great. Doesn't hurt Laremy Tunsil's pass protection stats at all because he's a great pass protector. It puts a whole lot of pressure on the younger players and the lesser offensive linemen on that team. The false starts. Because I know a lot of people like to diminish the false starts. This is the problem with the false starts. The false starts are evidence of selfishness. When Laremy Tunsil is trying to time the snap so well that he gets to keep his pristine pass blocking grades intact, but at the expense of killing drives, that's selfishness. And it's something that happens year after year after year after year. If he weren't making as much money as he did, if he weren't the veteran apex dude in that O-line meeting room, it wouldn't be necessarily as bad. If you had Penei Sewell on the other side and then you had a stud guard in the middle or something that could offset some of that, maybe it wouldn't necessarily have been as deleterious a thing. But that O-line culture needs to change. And that clip that we saw from CJ, that's not a swarm-like mentality, now is it? Is it? And what I'll see is, this is the one thing that's been annoying me, and I don't want to pick on these guys in particular because I like both of them, but DJ Bieneme said, yeah, the Texans players rocked with Laremy. The idea that he was bad for the locker room isn't accurate. Moving him is mainly about the contracts coming down the pipe. Can't pay everyone, but alas, he's gone and onward. Big Sarge says, contrary to what is being said about Laremy Tunsil, he was a leader in that locker room that the players looked up to. Okay, now this is where I'm not arguing against what Sarge is saying. I'm saying it was a problem that he was a leader in that locker room that the players looked up to. I don't like this conflation of likability with leadership. They are not synonymous. Likability is not the same as leadership. And when offensive players on a soft offense elect a player who's a great pass protector, but a finesse player, a player who is not good as a run blocker, has no element of physicality to his game, has a selfish streak in his false starts. The soft players on offense that elect him as their captain is not evidence that it's the right kind of leadership. You can't trust the electorate on that offense, particularly the younger guys. And the fact that we haven't even gotten to the fact that Kenyon Green was traded away. Let's see, where's that one? Oh yeah, the Kenyon Green, for those of you who don't know, traded for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Okay, Nick, big mistake drafting Kenyon Green, especially because he gave up a couple of really good players, guys that turned out to be Jordan Davis and Kyle Hamilton. You traded down 2 spots. Those guys got taken, and then you ended up with Kenyon Green. But good job getting something. Now, you'd want to talk about swarm. The defense is swarm AF. So back to D'Amico. D'Amico believes what he preaches when it comes to special work ethic and relentless mindset. The defensive players, by and large, as a group, those guys are swarm as hell. The offensive players are not. I don't think the offense should be allowed to look the defense in the eyes. The disparity in the gap between how tough, physical, just bloodthirsty, they are bloodthirsty. They have a taste for blood. Laremy Tunsil has a taste for caviar and truffles. Therein lies the difference. So if you're trying to figure it out and you're from outside of Houston, you cannot change the culture on that offense when the guy who makes the most money on the offensive line and is one of the highest paid offensive linemen in the league is the guy that those young impressionable players are looking at as, oh, that's the way you operate as a pro. Never practice, don't care much about run blocking, screw your team over with penalties, then I'll get paid. All right. So I credit D'Amico for making still what's a hard decision because they're completely revamping the offensive line. It's going to be, they got some uphill work to do. They did just sign Laken Tomlinson to a 1-year, $4.25 million deal. I like that. I don't think that automatically means he's the starter no matter what. He's been a very durable player in his career. He's been a better guard as of late and recently, more so than anybody else on the interior offensive line right now. I would include Shaq Mason in that. But D'Amico is making kind of a bold and ballsy maneuver here. He's saying the entire offensive line stunk last year. There's hope for some of the younger guys. I don't think we're going to see many more departures. We'll see if perhaps Titus Howard is traded. But yeah, they've got work to do. They've got to draft an offensive lineman. They've got to sign more guys in free agency. But they have to get back to fundamentals and having some semblance of a cohesion and selflessnness in that offensive line group. But I'll credit D'Amico for making the hard decision to let go of a good player in Laremy Tunsil. He's good, but he's not in the same conversation as Trent Williams in his prime or Penei Sewell right now or Tristan Wirfs. Like, it's not even close because he's not a complete offensive lineman. He's a pass protection specialist. He's a finesse player, and he's very, very good at that part of it, but it screws over a lot of other elements of line play. This excusing of his poor run blocking, and I tried, guys. I tried. I thought he did look more committed to the run game in the second half of the season. He wasn't a good run blocker, but at least he looked a little bit more committed to it. He didn't make the false starts, but you add the contract to it, and it's just time to move on. But they've got some work to do. D'Amico, he fired his buddy, Bobby Slowick, a few days after the end of the season. D'Amico's making hard decisions and critical decisions to just take a team from being competitive in a divisional round, like, oh, what a nice, pleasant group of young fellas here, and turning him into something that you can actually feel good about. The whole man, I get genuinely disgusted by people pointing out that, hey, other offensive linemen and other guys on the team liked him. Yeah, like that. It was a soft offense. There's, I would say, 3 guys on that team that we thought of this morning that are swarm caliber players. Tank Dell when he's healthy, Nico Collins and Joe Mixon. And I don't include quarterbacks in all of this. CJ's going to be great and fine and all that. Those are the guys I can think of. I think there's other guys who are potentially swarm guys or capable of that level of aggression and physicality, but you don't have to know a damn thing about football. You watch the Texans offense, watch the Texans defense, and there is a stark difference there. So the offense voting Titus Howard a captain and somehow that being evidence of, voting Laremy Tunsil a captain and somehow that being evidence of Laremy Tunsil being a good leader, that is like asking a quilting bee, who's the baddest bitch in this quilting bee? Soft. Quilters all over the place. Some of them have potential. Some of them might leave the quilting bee and go take a welding class or something like that. So I feel good about it. Long story short. The C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Getting C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who's on a 2-year, somewhere I want to say about $16 million contract, I feel good about that. This is like that secondary is stacked now. I think C.J. Gardner-Johnson, people will argue about just how good he is or what. I'll tell you what, he's aggressive, he's chippy, he makes plays. He's going to be paired up next to Kalen Bullock, young guy who's very much on the rise. You've got a very young secondary. Then and Jalen Petrie at the star position. I feel really good about the defense. My only concern would be that I feel like the defense got a little bit swarmier when they're already swarmy to begin with. The offensive side of the ball, that's where the real hard work begins. I told you guys, there's guards out there who are serviceable starters who will be improvements just by being able to play fundamentally sound football. I think Laken Tomlinson is one of those guys. And just 5 guys like that, with or without a Pro Bowl left tackle, you can have better pass protection. It does not have to be star-studded first-round picks and high-priced free agents all over the place on an offensive line. We brought up the issue, the example of the Lions last year. Greg Zeitler was one of their guards, and 1 year, $6 million a year contract last year, and he played very, very well on an offense that does have some first-round picks. The Lions have done a great job with that. But this was, this is a matter of, man, that O-line meeting room had to change. That O-line room had to change. You can't have the softest position group on the team be the position group that's supposed to be the lunch pail carrying, just like ugly, don't care about my hygiene, let's just get after it. I feel good about that. A few more. I'm going to lose my voice. This is the most excited I've been in a while. So Juice Scruggs and Jarrett Patterson, I think there's potential there. I think there's potential swarm there. Kenyon Green, I got to turn this heater off. My wife keeps it so damn cold that I keep a space heater in my studio / garage to keep my voice from to keep from getting too cold. But now my voice is drying out. As far as Kenyon Green goes, I wish nothing but the best for Kenyon Green. I don't have the same level of frustration or vitriol that I have for the veteran players on the team that haven't performed well, because those guys should know better. Kenyon was very young when he got drafted. He's had nothing but a bad string of injuries almost the entire time he's been in the NFL. He's going to go off and play for the Eagles for one of the best offensive line coaches this century in Jeff Stoutland. So I really honestly hope that Kenyon Green does well. But he was penciled in as the starter at left guard last year. We can't have that situation again. You can't just give these young guys the shot. I think, Juice Scruggs not having to compete with Jarrett Patterson. In hindsight, that was a mistake. I tried to trust in their process at the time. I know a lot of you disagreed with me, and I've conceded already, but in case you didn't hear me the first time, I concede that you were right. There should have been competition at center. Both those guys, I think, are still salvageable. I think Jarrett Patterson still has a future as either a center or a guard. I think Juice Scruggs is likely strictly a guard. What happens with Titus Howard? We know that he's really good buds with Laremy Tunsil. Titus is one of the guys that I've worried about. All right, man, is he trying to follow in Laremy Tunsil's footsteps? Because I'll tell you one thing. It's one thing, Laremy can get away with being a finesse player because he's exceptionally talented and gifted as a pass protector. Titus Howard does not have those same natural gifts. He never once should have been looking at Laremy Tunsil as the template for how to conduct anything in his own life. If he genuinely is committed to trying to play guard, if that's what they want him to do, if he wants to come in and play tackle this year, but maybe show up in better shape, I'm all for it. Blake Fisher, I think he's got swarm potential. I think whoever they take in the first round, I can damn well guarantee you there aren't going to be questions about his toughness or aggressiveness. I think you're going to get a junkyard dog of a football player if they draft an offensive lineman in the first round. So I feel good about that. We just signed Laken Tomlinson. I don't want to mess up his name. Yeah, Laken Tomlinson, who I will perpetually worry that I'm saying LaDainian Tomlinson or screwing up the name because I'm thinking of LaDainian Tomlinson. But he's been a starter, plays misses very few games. I haven't looked at his complete stats. I know he's played over 1,000 snaps in each of the last 8 seasons. I just looked at his game breakdowns a little bit earlier. better than the guys that they had playing at guard last year. He was this last year. I would say he was better than the guys they had at guard. And first and foremost, I think is coachable and is going to be the kind of guy that they're looking forward for moving forward. We just can't. You can't have divas. You can't have divas on it. Let's see. Oh, Steven. O-line was a problem. LT was not. Contracts and age are always issues. I know the Texans are your payday, but more balanced, objective cover. Oh, stop it, Steven. Don't be fraudulent on my message board. This is ridiculous, Steven. Please, yes. Quiz all the people on here about whether Seth Payne is objective or not. Please, Steven. Steven, honestly, you're in the extreme minority here in your opinion about my objectivity. Oh, my God. You disgust me, Steven, with that. You know what that is? I question your objectivity. You think, 6'10" host, yep, Texans, former player, he's not objective. I question your objectivity. Your prejudice is what you are. Likely a racist, too. I don't know. I'm just saying. Let's see. Extreme minority, thank you. I feel good. I feel great. I am objectively happy, but a little bit nervous because this is what we still don't know. We don't know for sure that Nick Caley is a good offensive coordinator. We don't find out for a while. I do like if we're just judging a guy based on talking points and emphasis, what I really appreciate about Caley so far is his emphasis on fundamentals. I think when he talks about the run game, it comes from a place of experience because he's been a tight ends coach forever. He's integrally involved in designing and implementing blocking schemes, both in the run and pass game, much more so than Bobby Slowick was. But even when Bobby would talk about the run, it was more in general terms and how, we emphasize it in practice. Caley, you feel much more like, all right, he wants to roll his sleeves up and get to work on the nuts and bolts part of this. And he says, he mentions fundamentals a lot. And that was something that was lacking with the Texans offensive line last year in both the run and the pass game. Again, Laremy Tunsil was a hell of a pass protector. Not a good run blocker. Not good at holding his water either. Maybe he just has bad rhythm. I don't know. But too many inopportune false starts. So I said this morning on our show, I think that there are high school football coaches in Houston because there's a bunch of really good high school football coaches in Houston. There were coaches that I'm sure were watching the Texans offensive line play and thinking like, why can they not pick these games up? Why is that guard's footwork the way it is? There were things that were just really questionable. And some of that sometimes comes from the offensive coordinator not really being explicit enough or simple enough in what a guy's rules are from week to week. Players get confused or they're being asked to do things that are more difficult than you should be able to do. And if there's not a really steady emphasis on the fundamentals all the time, everything falls apart. That's why I have hope that, let me get him off of here. Get out of here, Lakin. I do have hope that simply coaching by way of offensive line coach and offensive coordinator can take care of a lot of that. And then obviously with an infusion of different football players. So we'll see. Lakin Tomlinson, one addition. The draft, another potential addition. I'm guessing there's going to be at least a couple other offensive line added. Blake Fisher, and where does he fit in? Do they think of him possibly as a left tackle, or do they go out and find somebody else? Regardless, and especially if they move Titus Howard to guard, they're going to need a swing tackle at some point. Then which actually would mean they need two more offensive tackles. It's a lot. This is going to be a steep climb. I think it's a drastic move in a much different direction than any of us anticipated, and I'm still kind of amazed that they got C.J. Gardner-Johnson for basically a pick swap. They got a 2026 sixth rounder, so it's as close to a player for player swap as you can get. The Eagles obviously are in a situation where they're paying some people. They're going to have to get rid of some of their older guys, so it makes sense from their standpoint. They're in that very difficult. They're in that Astros level right now. They've reached the pinnacle, the Astros of the definitive World Series window, where you're going to have to make this tough decisions and let go of some guys, even if it's painful. The Texans, there's some people saying, well, the Texans had to make this choice because they can't pay everybody and they've got all these big contracts coming up. That's a little bit of a part of the equation. So let's at the very least say this. Of all the different high-priced players that the Texans could have given up in advance of contracts that are going to be doled out 2 or 3 years from now, this is the one they chose to shed. And it didn't happen in a vacuum, the Laremy Tunsil departure. All right, I'm going to get going. I bet there's probably a big move when I was while I was prattling on here. Steven, I encourage you to reassess your opinion. Listen to your peers, damn it. And we should have a great rest of the day. Thanks, everybody. Oh, like, subscribe, do all that stuff.